If you're new here, welcome. I went on a road trip in Switzerland from the Rhine Falls all the way to Lauterbrunnen Valley. In this video, I want to show you what the drive is actually like, what to expect, and the practical things you need to know if you're planning a similar trip. We did this trip in the first week of April, and the first thing you need to know, and this actually is something I completely missed when I was doing research for this trip, basically, in the Alps, winter doesn't really end in March. In some higher areas, there can still be heavy snow in spring, and so if you're driving in certain regions, especially in the mountains, you may still need winter tires in April. Apparently, in Switzerland, there is no fixed winter tire season by law, but in practice, most drivers switch to winter tires from around October till April. This is especially in the alpine areas. During this trip, we drove over the Brunig Pass. It's this right here. And as you can see, there was still a lot of snow around the roads. It really showed you how quickly the landscape changes with altitude in Switzerland. Within just a couple of hours, we went from these green valleys and blooming trees to these roads surrounded by snow. Even though the roads were clear, the snow along the roadside was a reminder that winter wasn't completely over in the mountains. Also, when you're driving around the pass, you get to see some amazing things like this hanging rock. I don't know if they have a specific name for this, and if you know it, please let me know in the comments down below. On some parts of the pass, it actually feels like you're driving on the side of a mountain, and it feels very safe. For this trip, we rented a car with Sixt, and we picked it up at Stuttgart Airport in Germany. We basically started the journey in Stuttgart. We were spending some time there before going to Switzerland. If you're planning a similar trip with a rental car, just make sure that the company allows cross-border travel and that insurance also covers Switzerland. Sixt made it quite straightforward for us, although renting a car for cross-border travel is usually slightly more expensive than if we stayed in Germany. To drive in Switzerland, obviously you need a valid driving license, so an EU or EEA license. A UK license is also fine. Both me and my partner have UK licenses. And when you're driving, you need both the license and a passport. This way, you can easily be identified when you're stopped. If your driving license isn't from one of these countries, you may need to get an international driving permit. And because we drove from Germany, we also had to buy a Swiss motorway vignette. It cost about 40 Swiss francs. The vignette is required for driving on Swiss motorways, and if you rent a car in Switzerland, it's usually already included, so you don't need to buy one. It's valid for a year. They don't have short-term options, so you have to purchase this one. We purchased ours online, and when you buy it, it's actually linked to the car's number plate. Apparently, you can also buy it at the border crossings. Now, talking about borders, we didn't notice any. Switzerland is in the Schengen area, so it wasn't clear which part was which when we were crossing the border between Germany and Switzerland. And some of these clips, I swear, I took in Liechtenstein because one of the routes we took, we had to drive through there, and the landscape on the border between Liechtenstein and Switzerland looks so similar. It's quite hard for me to tell which is which. Also, when we were going back to Germany, we did pass through Austria to get to Munich. So yeah, not all of the clips in this video are from the Brunig Pass. It's just a compilation of the clips we took during the trip. This clip is actually the only one I can definitely tell this was en route to Liechtenstein, because I can see the Vaduz sign. And if you happen to drive through or visit Liechtenstein, you don't need to buy an additional vignette. The Swiss motorway vignette is all you need when you're traveling between Switzerland and Liechtenstein. The same applies to car insurance, so you don't need separate insurance for Liechtenstein if your car is already insured for Switzerland. Another thing you should be aware of is that Switzerland has speed cameras everywhere, even in places that feel remote. So if you get a ticket, it will find you, even if you're driving a foreign registered car. And if you don't pay the fine, it can increase. With rental cars, the company will just charge it directly to your card, obviously with extra fees. Now, about the fines, this can be fixed or income-based depending on the violation. Minor infractions get fixed fines, so these are like parking tickets or going a few kilometers over the speed limit. Severe violations are income-based, so I'm guessing this is like drunk driving and something that can be classified as a criminal offense. Another thing you should be aware of is that radar detectors and speed camera warning systems are illegal in Switzerland. And so make sure to turn off any speed camera alerts in your GPS or navigation app before you drive. If you're distracted whilst driving, like adjusting your GPS or eating on the motorway, you can also be fined. You must have full control of the car at all times. Another thing you should know is that traffic coming from the right has priority, including cyclists. And another obvious one is that they do drive on the right. Also, police cars, ambulances, and fire trucks with blue lights and sirens always have priority. One thing I want to point out is that driving in Swiss cities is actually a very different experience from driving through the countryside. In the cities, you will come across a lot more traffic, pedestrians, cyclists, trams, and generally lower speed limits. And once you're out in the countryside, the roads become quieter and it's just much more scenic. Fuel was also a lot more expensive compared to Germany. I don't remember the exact prices that we were paying, but make sure you do plan ahead. If you're going to a destination which has several routes, sometimes the slower route is actually more rewarding because the faster one usually goes on the motorway and the slower ones usually pass through these charming villages and lakes. And so my recommendation is that you plan out enough time to make sure you don't miss out some of these scenic routes. Everything I've spoken about in this video is just basics. There's more that you need to know, and I recommend that you check out myswissapps.com for more traffic rules. Another thing I noticed was just how quickly the weather changes in Switzerland. You can leave a town with sunshine and blue skies, and within a few minutes, you can be driving through some clouds. And then back to sunshine. Even though it looks like it should be really cold, but throughout the whole journey, I was not exactly cold. Basically, don't dress for summer, but don't dress for winter either, just in between, if you get what I mean. Another thing to keep in mind is that shops in Switzerland often close much earlier than you'd expect, especially the ones outside the big cities. And that's including pharmacies as well. So if you're planning on a road trip, it's a good idea to buy groceries or anything else you need as soon as you can. Now, beyond all the practical stuff, I just want to appreciate the roads in Switzerland because what stood out to me was the driving experience itself. I mean, the road quality is on another level. I did not witness a single pothole the whole journey, and out of all of the countries I've been to so far, that's about 30. Switzerland has some of the best roads I've ever seen. And driving through Switzerland honestly feels like being in a movie. The landscapes are unreal. The engineering is incredible. We went through so many mountain tunnels, and it constantly felt like the scenery was changing every few minutes. The engineering itself almost feels like part of the attraction. In my opinion, it's something worth seeing on its own. Another thing that stood out to me was how well behaved the drivers were. Everything felt calm, disciplined, and very predictable. And the same is going to be expected from you, of course. I genuinely think a road trip in Switzerland is something everyone should experience at least once in their lifetime. The scenery, the engineering, the mountains, the lakes, it all just comes together in a way that just feels unforgettable. So I was talking to a friend who said that once you've seen one European country, you've basically seen them all. But I couldn't disagree more. I think this idea comes from flying between major cities. If you only visit big cities, of course things can feel similar, especially with the architecture. But when you travel by road or train, you get to see completely different sides of the countries. And during this trip, I saw the Rhine River in a way that I've never seen it before. This was through the Rhine Falls. The other time I've seen it was in Germany, in Bacharach and Koblenz. The vibe is completely different. In Switzerland, I've seen it in the form of a waterfall. And in Germany, it's just a calm river. And by driving across Switzerland, I came across some small towns and landscapes you'd completely miss by flying from one big city to the other. And in Switzerland, the experience changes a lot depending on where you are. Last time when I visited, I only went to Geneva. It felt very international, very busy, and most people just kept to themselves. But on this trip, in smaller places like Schaffhausen, it felt completely different. People would actually greet you with Guten Morgen in the morning as you walk past them. It just felt more local and more connected. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.